Lift up your heart and praise. Lift up your hands and praise. Lift up your voice and praise.
And Moshe said, Hear, O Yisrael, Yahweh your Elohim, Yahweh is one, and you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart. And you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way. When you lie down and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Chag Sameach, everyone. Chag Sameach to everyone worshiping with us at home. I know it's after the feast, but you know, you may be watching this next year, amen. We have had a wonderful Feast of Tabernacles, amen. I mean, we really have. I want to thank everyone who pitched in, if you'll pardon the pun, who pitched in this year and helped do their part to run things so smoothly. We had some people do some special things at the feast this year, like Elijah brought all the wood we needed, didn't we? Firewood for our evening campfire and solving the world problem / extreme punting sessions. Right? He brought the wood for that, and I'll bet you didn't think I would do that, did you? Look, don't give me a cold shoulder. I thought you might get fired up. That's not good. I'm trying to be kindling your enthusiasm. Say,
you're smoking now.
Yeah, I'm smoking now. Ember's some pretty good puns, Stan. we have a lot of fun with that. Drew put on a presentation for us on wild edibles, and he had handouts and wild edible bingo and gave out prizes for those of us that were able to identify them. And for those of us that didn't get all of them right, we got to keep the handout so that next time we could get them all right. But we really learned a lot about some of the things that Yahweh has created for His people to use for food and medicine, which is just in the world all around us. Right? But most of us worked hard helping with tents, tarps, cooking, cleaning, grocery buying, etc., and just cooperating in many, many ways. Amen? And I want to especially thank Jenny and Kathy. They stayed on top of the kitchen responsibilities and were constantly on duty with cooking and cleaning and storing, etc., and they made our feast much more enjoyable because of their gifts of service. Amen? Now, I also especially want to thank girlfriend, Debbie. And I especially want to thank Debbie for her devotion to this congregation and her organizational skills, the planning meetings, the long hours that she's put in to put this together, and all the phone calls she's made, and grocery shoppings, and many, many other things that she's done to make our feast a success. And I couldn't do it without you, girlfriend, and I don't think we would either. So we started things off right, or I'd say on the right foot, with the men presenting themselves to Yahweh, and we heard some really wonderful messages each day from different men in the congregation, and I learned a lot from all of them. How about you? Yeah. The messages that you fellas bring are part of my favorite part of the feast. And I hope to bring something today that'll be helpful in keeping us focused on the things that we need to be doing after we leave the feast and get back into our routines. The name of the message today is Weed 'em and Reap. All right? Now, this title is a spoonerism. How many people know what a spoonerism is? All right, all right. A spoonerism is when you usually do it with names, but you can do it with other things. It's kind of like you'll take the first sound in the last name and the first sound in the first name, and you'll kind of exchange them back and forth. Like, for instance, you'd have, instead of Matt Beavers, you'd have Bat Meavers. And you'd have Cat Caldwell over there. He brought a message, and O.E. Jinglish, he brought a message, and Whis Crilly brought a message. Whis Crilly. And so what do you suppose weed 'em and reap is a spoonerism of? Read 'em and weep. That's right. See, read 'em and weep is a term that's typically associated with card playing. When one player will lay down the winning hand, and the others, upon hearing the words "read 'em and weep," are going to be disappointed to learn that they lost the hand. Right? That's what it is. Well, guess what? Sometimes concerning the Torah, or in other words, the instructions of Yahweh, we see read 'em and weep scenarios playing out in the Scriptures. Sometimes it's tov, and sometimes it's lo tov, but we still see them in the Scriptures. Sometimes it's because you lose when they read 'em and weep, and sometimes it's because they win and there are tears of joy and gladness. All right? As you know, Yisrael was constantly back and forth from apostasy to adherence. It kind of mostly depended on what the king was doing and the way he was acting. All right? And so we're going to look at a couple of those situations today. And so we're going to be turning to 2 Kings chapter 22, and we come to a young king named Josiah, or Yoshiyahu. And so 2 Kings 22, we're going to start reading in verse 1, and we will be on page 407 in the 98 ISR. 2 Kings chapter 22. In verse 1, Yoshiyahu was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. So he was 39 at the end of his reign. And his mother's name was Yedidah, the daughter of Adiah of Botzkoth. And he did what was right in the eyes of Yahweh, and walked in all the ways of his father David, and did not turn aside right or left. And it came to be in the 18th year of sovereign Yoshiyahu that the sovereign sent Shaphan the scribe, the son of Atzaliah, the son of Meshullam, to the house of Yahweh, saying, "Go up to Kilkiah the high priest, and let him weigh the silver which has been brought into the house of Yahweh, which the doorkeepers had gathered from the people. And let them give it into the hand of those doing the work, who are the overseers of the house of Yahweh, and let them give it to those who are in the house of Yahweh doing the work to repair the damages of the house, to carpenters and to builders and to stonemasons, and to buy timber and hewn stone to repair the house. However, let not the silver given into their hands be reckoned with them, for they are acting trustworthily." And Hilkiah, the high priest, said to Shaphan the scribe, "I have found the book of the Torah in the house of Yahweh." Okay? So evidently, this was something that had been misplaced or hidden or something. And Hilkiah gave the book to Shaphan, and he read it. And Shaphan the scribe came to the sovereign and brought word to the sovereign again, saying, "Your servants have gathered the silver that was found in the house, and have given it into the hand of those who do the work, who oversee the house of Yahweh." And Shaphan the scribe informed the sovereign, saying, "Hilkiah the priest has given me a book." And Shaphan read it before the sovereign, and it came to be, when the sovereign heard the words of the book of the Torah, that he tore his garments. Now, do you know what tearing your garments is a sign of? It's a sign of mourning. It is a sign of mourning. Mourning is usually accompanied with what? Weeping. All right? Well, did Yoshiyahu weep when he tore his garment? When he heard the words of the book of the Torah? Well, let's see. Verse 12. And the sovereign commanded Hilkiah the priest, and Ahiam the son of Shaphan, and Achbor the son of Milkiah, and Shaphan the scribe, and Asaiah, a servant of the sovereign, saying, Go inquire of Yahweh for me, for the people, and all Yehudah, that would be Judah, concerning the words of this book that has been found. For great is the wrath of Yahweh that is kindled against us, because our fathers have not obeyed the word of this book to do according to all that is written concerning us. Sounds like we're getting a little nervous here, amen? Then Hilkiah, the priest, and Ahiam, and Achbor, and Shaphan, and Asaiah went to Huldah, the prophetess, the wife of Shallum, son of Tikwa, the son of Charchas, keeper of the wardrobe. Now, she was dwelling in Jerusalem in the second quarter. And they spoke with her, and she said to them, Thus said Yahweh Elohim of Yisrael, Say to the man who sent you to me, Thus said Yahweh, See, or behold, I am bringing evil on this place and on its inhabitants. All the words of the book which the sovereign of Yehudah has read, because they have forsaken me and burned incense to other mighty ones to provoke me with all the works of their hands, and so my wrath shall be kindled against that place and not be quenched. This is not going to go well, amen? And to the sovereign of Yehudah, who sent you to inquire of Yahweh, say this to him, Thus said Yahweh, Elohim of Yisrael, As for the words which you have heard, because your heart was tender, and you humbled yourself before Yahweh, when you heard what I spoke against this place and against his inhabitants, that they would become a ruin and a curse, and did tore your garments, and what's that next word? Wept before me. I also have heard, declares Yahweh. So he did indeed read them and weep. Right? Therefore, see, I am gathering you to your fathers, and you shall be gathered to your grave in peace, so that your eyes do not see all the evil I am bringing on this place. And they brought the word to the sovereign. So Josiah reads and weeps from grief. Right? He realizes what's about to come upon Judah because of their transgressions before it happens, as a result of the transgressions of their fathers and transgressions of their own sins. But he is certainly saddened that this people have not served Yahweh in gladness, all right, but had instead transgressed in many ways and have served and sacrificed to other mighty ones. In Deuteronomy 28, we read about the blessings and the curses, right? And I really appreciated the other day Joey when he brought the message that he did when we were reading through the blessings, the way that Joey got us to read them with the personal pronouns, with the I's and the me's, and I thought that was a very great exercise because it made it seem very personal. About how we may be blessed of Yahweh when we obey, didn't it? It was a good exercise. The same thing can happen when we read the curses. And it's probably not a bad idea to do that as well. Josiah read what was going to happen because he knew that Judah was in transgression. Now, I want to look at this. Turn to Deuteronomy 28. And we're going to read it like it reads. We're not going to put it in the personal pronouns because, let's see. Deuteronomy 28. We're going to start reading in verse 45. We're going to be on page 215. Deuteronomy 28:45. And all these curses shall come upon you, and they shall pursue and overtake you until you are destroyed, because you did not obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim to guard his commands and his laws which he commanded. Okay, that's one part, but let's keep reading. And they shall be upon you for a sign and for a wonder, and on your seed forever. Look at this. Because you did not serve Yahweh your Elohim with joy and gladness of heart for all the plenty. Now, you know, we're commanded during the feast to be only rejoicing, and we're certainly in the midst of a bunch of plenty, all right? All right. Verse 48. Let's go back to 47. Because you did not serve Yahweh your Elohim with joy and gladness of heart for all the plenty, you shall serve your enemies whom Yahweh sends against you in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in need of all. And he shall put a yoke of iron on your neck until he has destroyed you. Right. Josiah was a righteous man, but he knew that the people were not serving Yahweh with joy and gladness of heart for all the plenty. Right. But instead, they served other mighty ones. They served idols. Yahweh has given them everything, and they're cheating on him. You know? They're cheating on Yahweh. So what happens? Yahweh makes good on his promises. Yahweh is somebody that you can depend on. You don't have to worry about Yahweh going back on his word. He's not going to put you on restriction for a week and then let you off after a day. If Yahweh tells you what the punishment's going to be, that's what the punishment's going to be. And if he tells you what the blessing's going to be, well, that's what the blessing's going to be. All right? So Yahweh makes good on his word, and Judah reaps the curses and is eventually sacked and carried off into captivity to Babylon, where they were for how long? 70 years. All right? They're torn away from their homes and their way of life and cursed rather than blessed of Elohim. Now, you have to realize that after 70 years, all of the old people, the people who are grandparents now, at this 70-year point, they were mere youths when they were carried off out of the land of Yisrael, and they only have vague memories of what it was like when they were children. An 80-year-old grandpa was 10 years old when they got carried off. You know? It's just like Cain's 10 years old. All right? It's hard to imagine Cain when he's 80 years old, how much of this he would really remember it precisely, you know, if he was uprooted and put in a place completely different from where he's being raised now. By this time, you would have 2 generations living in Babylon who had never seen the land of Israel. They've only heard about it from these little youngsters. Of course, you know, the things got passed down as people got older and died and so forth, but they'd never even seen it. And the ones who have seen it are less and less of them every day. Every day. Every day. And this was because they did not obey the voice of Yahweh and did not serve him with joy and gladness during the time of plenty. So, Judah is carried away and serves the king of Babylon for all this time, and then a miracle happens. Turn with me to the book of Ezra. Ezra chapter 1. We're going to be on page, that's Esther. Ezra chapter 1, page 815. Sorry, 817. Ezra 1:1. And in the first year of Koresh, the sovereign of Persia, the word of Yahweh by the mouth of Yeremiah might be accomplished. Yahweh stirred up the spirit of Koresh, sovereign of Persia, to proclaim throughout all his reign, and also in writing, saying, thus said Koresh, sovereign of Persia, Yahweh, Elohim of the heavens. Do you see what that Persian king is saying? Yahweh, Elohim of the heavens, has given me all the reins of the earth, and he has commanded me to build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Yehudah. Who is among of all his people? His Elohim be with him, and let him go to Jerusalem, which is in Yehudah, and build the house of Yahweh Elohim of Yisrael. He is Elohim. which is in Jerusalem. That's a miracle that's happening right there. That's a miracle that's happening. Yahweh proclaimed the name of Koresh years and years before he was ever born. So, they're allowed to return to build back the Hekal, or the temple of Yahweh, which had been destroyed 70 years before, and they leave the only home that they've ever known for 70 years. Because you know what? After 2 generations of being somewhere else, you start sort of getting acclimated to the culture there. Yeah, and you start forgetting what you had. All right? And so they've been there for 70 years, and they go to the land of their forefathers, which is for all intents and purposes a foreign land to them. You ever think of that? It's like going to a foreign land to them, of which they've only heard about. And they go and they have to live through all sorts of adversity while rebuilding the temple in this process, even working with one hand on their sword and working with the other hand trying to do work because of their need to defend themselves against their enemies that are coming against them, that's trying to stop the rebuilding of the temple. So they're displaced. They're working hard. They've got dread all about them, and they're just not. It's just not a good, comfortable situation to be in. Now, it's believed that Ezra and Nehemiah were originally one book. And so it brings us to this next part, and I want to try to keep in mind just how difficult their lives had been up at this point. All right, when we get this. Nehemiah chapter 8. I'm going to start reading in verse 1. And it says, and when the 7th month came, what month are we in? We're in the 7th month, aren't we? Isn't that interesting? And when the 7th month came, and the children of Israel were in their cities, and all the people gathered together as one man in the open space that was in front of the water gate, that they spoke to Ezra, the scribe, to bring, what does it say they're bringing out? The book of the Torah of Moshe, which Yahweh had commanded Israel. And Ezra the priest brought the Torah before the assembly of both men and women, and all who could hear with understanding on the first day of the 7th month. That would be Teruah. And he read from it in the open space and in front of the water gate from morning until midday before the men and women and those who could understand. And the ears of all the people listened to the book of the Torah. And Ezra the scribe stood on a platform of wood which they had made for the purpose, and beside him on his right stood Mattithiah and Shema and Ananiah and Uriah and Hilkiah and Maaseiah, and on his left stood Pedaiah and Mishael and Milkiah and Hashum and Hashbaddanah, Zechariah, Meshullam. And Ezra opened the book. What book? Book of the Torah. All right. Opened the book inside of all the people, for he was above all the people. And when he opened it, you know what everybody did? It says they all stood up. Now, how many people do that today? Might be it's a little too commonplace. I don't know. I really don't want to say that it's too commonplace to have it, but it may be that we just don't oftentimes hold it in the reverence that we might should. Nevertheless, he brought out the book of the Torah and showed it to the people, and they all stood up. And Ezra blessed Yahweh, verse 6, the great Elohim. Then all the people answered, Amen, Amen, while lifting up their hands, and they bowed their heads and worshipped Yahweh with faces to the ground. And Yeshua and Bani and Sherebiah and Yamin, Akub, Shabbatai, Hodiah, Maaseiah, Kilitha, Azariah, Yozabad, Hanan, Peliah, and the Levites caused the people to understand the Torah while the people were in their place. And they read in the book of the Torah of Elohim, translating to give the sense, and caused them to understand the reading. And Nehemiah, who was the governor and Ezra the priest, the scribe, and the Levites who taught the people, said to all the people, "This day is set apart to Yahweh your Elohim. Do not mourn or weep." For all the people wept when they heard the words of the Torah. Why did they read them and weep? That's what they did, isn't it? Read them and weep. There are probably many reasons, but I have to think that one of the reasons is the regret over what they had been put through as a result of disobedience to that Torah. And that all this came upon them because of that disobedience. And that they were quickened in their heart, or cut to their heart, to realize that Yahweh is real. Yahweh is real, and Yahweh means what he says. And if their fathers had only obeyed and served Yahweh with joy and gladness of heart, they would not have been through all of this. And they were also likely feeling the shame with a broken and contrite heart. You know, do you realize you can feel the shame of somebody else in your family? You know, if you've got a parent that's a no account and you didn't have anything to do with that, you can still feel shame because your family has got a bad name put on them now because nobody wants them in the neighborhood kind of stuff. So they could very well have been feeling shame associated with what has come upon them because of their fathers. Verse 10. And then he said to them, Go eat the fat, drink the sweet, send portions to those for whom none is prepared, for this day is set apart to our Yahweh. Do not be sad, for the joy of Yahweh is your strength. So Yahweh is an El compassionate, amen? All right? And the Levites were silencing all the people, saying, Hush, for the day is set apart. Do not be sad. And all the people went to eat and drink and send portions and make great, what's that next word? Rejoicing, because they understood the words that were made known to them. Because you know what? There's blessing. There's not just curses. There's curses and there is blessing. Amen? And that's something to rejoice about. Amen? All right. And on the second day, verse 13, the heads of the fathers' houses of all the people with the priests and the Levites were gathered to Ezra the scribe in order to study the words of the Torah. And they found written in the Torah, which Yahweh had commanded by Moshe, that the children of Israel should dwell in booths in the festival of the 7th month. How many of us found out that Yahweh wanted us to dwell in booths in the 7th month? It's a blessing, amen? All right. Verse 15. See, so you got things in common with these people. You know? We really do have some commonality with Israel when they have lost the Torah and they get it back. You know, because most all of us did not have the Torah as we understand it now, right? And it's something that was given to us. And we should receive it with joy and gladness. Verse 14, and they found written in the book of the Torah, which Yahweh had commanded by Moshe, that the children of Israel should dwell in booths in the festival of the 7th month. And that they should announce and proclaim in all their cities and in Jerusalem, saying, Go out to the mountain and bring olive branches of laurel trees and myrtle branches and palm branches and branches of leafy trees to make booths, as it is written. So the people went out and brought them and made themselves booths, each one on the roof of his house and in their courtyards and in the courtyards of the house of Elohim and in the open space of the water gate and in the open space of the gate of Ephraim. And the entire assembly of those who had come back from the captivity made booths and sat under the booths. For since the days of Yeshua the son of Nun until the day the children of Israel had not done so, and there was very great rejoicing. And day by day, from the first day until the last day, he read from the book of the Torah of Elohim, and they performed the festival 7 days, and on the 8th day there was an assembly according to the right ruling. All right? Now, we've heard several messages this week that talked about celebrating and rejoicing, not robbing Elohim, but rejoicing in the gifts that he has given you and serving him and celebrating and rejoicing. And that's what Yahweh wants, and that's what we can expect, is celebrating and rejoicing if we will repent and serve Yahweh, and then he lifts us up. We see this again and again, but I think that the attitude that we just read about Nehemiah is a great example for us to emulate. All right? Now, we see this over and over in Scripture. We've got a short passage here in James chapter 4. Yaakov, chapter 4, we're on page 1176. James 4, verse 5. Do you think the Scripture speaks to no purpose? Does the Spirit which dwells in us intensely crave unto envy? But he gives greater favor. Because of this, he says, Elohim resists the proud, but gives favor to the humble. So then, subject yourself to Elohim. Resist the devil, and he shall flee from you. Draw near to Elohim, and he shall draw near to you. Cleanse hands, sinners, and cleanse the hearts, you double-minded. Lament and mourn and weep. Let your laughter, and that would be unrighteous laughter, okay? Let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to dejection. Humble yourself in the sight of the Master, and he shall lift you up, okay? So that's, you see where that's going? You know, turn away from the world, draw near to Elohim, he'll lift you up. Now, one of the things that we need to be doing is preparing for the end of the age, because there is going to be a time of weeping versus rejoicing. There really will. Let's look at Matthew 13. Matthew 13, we're going to start reading in verse 24. So we'll be on page 932 in the 98 ISR. Matthew 13, verse 24. Another parable he put before them, saying, the reign of the heavens has become like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed darnel among the wheat and went away. And when the blade sprouted and bore fruit, then the darnel also appeared. And the servants of the master of the house came and said to him, Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? From where then does it have the darnel? And he said to them, an enemy did this. And the servant said to him, do you wish then that we go and gather them up? But he said, no, lest while you gather up the darnel, you also uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the what? Harvest. And at that time of the harvest I shall say to who? The reapers, first gather the darnel and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my granary. Okay, so he's going to weed them and reap. Amen? He's going to weed them and reap. All right, now skip down to verse 36. Do you like that, Jenny? All right. Verse 36. Then having sent the crowds away, Yeshua went into the house, and his taught ones came to him, saying, explain to us the parable of the darnel of the field. And he answering said to them, he who is sowing the good seed is the son of Adam, and the field is the world, and the good seed, these are the sons of the rain, but the darnel are the sons of the wicked one. Now, I really think that when he's talking about the sons of the rain and the sons of the wicked one, he's talking about they would refer to in a father and son or father and child type relationship a teacher and a student, okay? And so you got these here that I tend to think that's talking about those that have studied the ways of the rain versus those that have studied the ways of the wicked one, okay? And the enemy who sowed them, verse 39, is the devil. And the harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are the messengers. As the darnel then is gathered and burned in the fire, so it shall be at the end of the age. The son of Adam shall send out his messengers, and they shall gather out of his reign all the stumbling blocks, and those doing what? Lawlessness. In other words, not keeping what? Yahweh's Torah. That's what lawlessness is, all right? Verse 42, and shall throw them into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. And that's why you need to read them and weep. So that you are wheat when he comes to weed them and reap. That'd make a good song, wouldn't it? Verse 43. Then the righteous shall shine forth as the sun in the reign of their Father. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Now, sadly, there are a lot of people today who weep when they hear the words of the Torah. But they don't weep for fear, and neither do they weep for joy. What then do they weep for? They weep and they mourn at the thought that something just might be required of them. And that Yahweh's got standards and Yahweh's got expectations. And that this system is not a welfare salvation system. All right? Where you just go down there and sign a card and start getting benefits. Just like in Pat's message concerning the story of Elisha and the widow woman, you see, Yahweh sustained her and provided. But she had to go out, like he pointed out, and had to gather the vessels for Yahweh to fill them with oil. That is the way that went, isn't it? She did her part. She did her part in order for Yahweh to take what she had, the one jar of oil, to provide her with sustenance. All right? And Yahweh expects us to do our part in order that he can sustain us with what we have. It goes to your message about using what Matt's message about don't rob Elohim. That's the name of it, right? All right. Using what Yahweh has given you. So that you can do like it said in Chris's message, celebrate and rejoice. All right? And you see, we have something, I mean, aside from the talents that you have and may know that you have or may not even be aware that you have yet, we have something that's very, very precious, which Yahweh has given to each and every one of us. You know what it is, Kendra? Okay, I'm going to tell you. It's in Deuteronomy chapter 30. We're going to start reading verse 6. It'll be on page 218. Deuteronomy 30, verse 6. And Yahweh your Elohim shall circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed to love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being, so that you might what? Live. And Yahweh your Elohim shall put all these curses, because remember, we in two previous chapters, we got the blessings and the curses there. Yahweh your Elohim shall put all these curses on your enemies and on those who hate you, who persecuted you, and you shall turn back and obey the voice of Yahweh and do all his commands which I command you today. Now that's the difference between where we're trying to be and where some of those people I was talking about hear the Torah and mourn are. Right? We want to do what Yahweh has commanded us. Verse 8, and you shall turn back and obey the voice of Yahweh and do all his commands which I command you today, and Yahweh your Elohim shall make you have excess. He'll make you have excess. And all the work of your hand, in the fruit of your body, in the fruit of your livestock, and in the fruit of your ground for good. For Yahweh turns back to what? Rejoice over you for good, as he rejoiced over your fathers, if you obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim to guard his commands and his laws, which are written in this book of the Torah. If you turn back to Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being. For this command which I'm commanding you today, it is not too hard for you, nor is it far off. It's not in the heavens to say, who shall ascend into the heavens for us and bring it to us and cause us to hear it so that we do it, nor is it beyond the sea. To say, who shall go over the sea for us and bring it to us and cause us to hear it so that we do it. For the word is where? Very near you, in your mouth and in your heart. What? To do it. Do you see that? That's something that you possess which he has given you. That's something very precious that he has given you. This is not just a jar of oil. All right? That's the very word of Yahweh which has been given by Yahweh. And we just read where Yahweh said that he would multiply that way beyond what he did with that widow's jar of oil. And what he did with that widow's jar of oil was pretty impressive, I mean. Just saying. Just saying. What then might he do with a vessel? Oh, I don't know. Named Tyler, or John, or Rosalie, or Jeannie, or Kathy, or Ashley, or Robert, or I'm not going to name all of you. Put your name in there. What would he do with a vessel named you? After filling that vessel and anointed you with the oil of his word. That's something to think about, isn't it? That's something to think about. What might he multiply if you use what you have? What you've been given? This Torah. Because he will use what you have if you use it for him. Verse 15. See, I have set before you today punishment and hardship. Is that what yours says? No, it doesn't. It says, I have set before you today life and good and death and evil, in that I am commanding you today to love Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in his ways, and to guard his commands and his laws and his right rulings, and you shall live and increase. That's a good place to be, I mean. Right? You shall live and increase, and Yahweh your Elohim shall bless you in the land which you go to possess. But if your heart turns away and you do not obey, and shall be drawn away, and shall bow down to other mighty ones and serve them, I have declared to you today that you shall certainly perish, and you shall not prolong your days in the land which you are passing over the Jordan to enter and possess. I have called the heavens and the earth as witness today against you. I have set before you life and death, the blessing and the curse. Therefore you shall choose life, so that you live, both you and your seed, to love Yahweh your Elohim, to obey his voice, and to cling to him. For he is your life and the length of your days, to dwell in the land which Yahweh swore to your fathers, Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Jacob, to give them. His word is life to us. Therefore you shall choose life. Now, Exodus 34, starting in verse 5. There's several places we could have turned to read this. Exodus 34, verse 5, page 94. Exodus 34, verse 5. And Yahweh came down in the cloud and stood with him, Moshe, there, and proclaimed the name of Yahweh. And Yahweh passed before him and proclaimed, Yahweh, Yahweh, an El compassionate and showing favor, patient and great in kindness and truth, watching over kindness for thousands, forgiving crookedness and transgression and sin. That is a great thing to hear, amen. But you don't have to take that part, because it keeps on saying, but by no means leaving unpunished, visiting the crookedness of the fathers upon the children and the children's children to the third and fourth generation. So you can choose life or you can choose death and destruction. But he's already told you which way it's going to be, so there's no surprises. We serve an El compassionate. We should therefore be able to serve with joy and gladness of heart. Amen? Right? We're going to read 3 passages in the Psalms before we conclude. And we can see that compassion here. Our first psalm that we're going to look at is Psalm 51. Page 673. Psalm 51, verse 1. Show me favor, O Elohim. Remember what he said a while ago? Compassionate and showing favor. Show me favor, O Elohim, according to your kindness. He says he had great kindness, didn't he? According to the greatness of your compassion. He said he was compassionate. Blot out my transgressions. He said he forgave sin. Wash me completely from my guilt and cleanse me from my sin. For I know my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. Against you, you alone have I sinned and done evil in your eyes, that you might be proven right in your words. Be clear when you judge. See, I was brought forth in crookedness, and in sin my mother conceived me. See, you have desired truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden part you make me know wisdom. Cleanse me with hyssop, and I am clean. Wash me, and I am whiter than snow. Look here. Let me hear joy and gladness. Let the bones you have crushed rejoice. Hide your face from my sins, and blot out all of my crookedness. Create in me a clean heart, O Elohim, and a renewed, steadfast spirit within me. Do not cast me away from your presence, and do not take your set-apart spirit from me. Restore to me the joy of your deliverance, and uphold me, noble spirit. Let me teach transgressors your ways, so that sinners turn back to you. Deliver me from blood guilt, O Elohim, Elohim of my deliverance. Let my tongue sing aloud of your righteousness. O Yahweh, open my lips, and that my mouth declare your praise. For you do not desire slaughtering, or I would give it. You do not delight in burnt offering. The slaughterings of Elohim are a broken spirit, a heart broken and crushed. O Elohim, these you do not despise. Do good in your good pleasure to Zion. Build the walls of Yerushalayim. Then you would delight in slaughterings of righteousness, in burnt offerings, and complete burnt offering. Then young bulls would be offered on your altar. If we turn back to Elohim, he will turn back to us. Hallelujah. Psalm 126. Page 719. Verse 1. When Yahweh turns back the captivity of Zion, we shall be like dreamers. Then our mouths shall be filled with what? Laughter. With singing, and our tongue with singing. Then shall they say among the Gentiles, Yahweh has done great deeds for them. Yahweh shall do great deeds for us. We shall be, what's that next word? Glad. Turn back our captivity, O Yahweh, like the streams in the south. Those sowing in tears shall reap with songs of joy. Hallelujah. He who goes on and weeps, bearing seeds for sowing, shall indeed come in with rejoicing, bearing his sheaves. Hallelujah. And our last psalm today is 119. I'm going to start reading in 111. 119, 111, at the bottom of page 715. Psalm 119, 111. Your witnesses are my inheritance forever, for they are what? The joy of my heart. The joy of my heart. I have inclined my heart to do your laws forever to the end. So, we need to be mindful to have Yahweh's instructions where? In the front of our minds. And just like the Israelites of the past, we have discovered that which has been missing in the lives of so many, the book of Yahweh's Torah. Amen? All right. And we need to weep too for sadness which came from the consequences of our lives that we lived without the Torah. And for the joy which comes from the blessings which come from our lives lived within the Torah. Hallelujah. Yahweh that gave them to us for our good always, that we might live. So, as Paul said, work out your own deliverance with what? Fear and trembling. A lot of people like to leave that last part out. Work out your own deliverance with fear and trembling. There have been Israelites of the past who wept when they learned of Yahweh's Torah. And I want to say this again because there is a harvest coming at the end of the age. That's why you need to read them and weep, so that you are wheat when he comes to weed them and reap. Yavrakeka Yahweh ba'ishmureka ya'er Yahweh panavaleka bikaneka yasa Yahweh panavaleka bi'asem lakas shalom. Yahweh bless you and guard you. Yahweh make his face to shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahweh lift up his face upon you and give you his complete contentment.